All right, hello everybody. I'm back online, ready for a concert tonight. And the theme for tonight's concert is music for silent movies. Now, I don't plan to sit here and play a bunch of mood music for silent films that you won't be able to see. Most of what I'll be playing is ragtime and novelty piano and old pop songs, just like I usually do. But I'm going to start out with one of my favorite rags, which was the theme song for the Keystone Cops, some of the very earliest silent film comedies. And Fatty Arbuckle got his start in those movies. And his movies were some of the first ones that I played for. This is really a terrific piece from 1912. It's called A Bag of Rags. And that's A Bag of Rags. Thank you so much, folks. I'm using my new Ethernet adapter tonight. I'm hoping it's really going to work well. Let me know if the audio and video is all coming through good for you. And it's just unfortunate. It's kind of hard for me to test the different equipment that I use without sitting here and playing the piano for myself for 2 hours. So I have tested it, but only for a short amount of time. We'll see what happens tonight. I've got some great pieces planned and had lots of time to practice this afternoon. The next thing I want to do is one of the great Tin Pan Alley rags, which I have used for silent films as well, just recently. And there's a lot of rags that work very well, especially for comedy films. And I find that the rags with minor key themes are some of the very best for movies. And this one has several minor key themes in it. This is the famous Wild Cherries Rag, which I believe came out in 1908, written by Ted Snyder, who was one of Irving Berlin's early partners in the music business. This is the Wild Cherries Rag. Thank you so much, everybody. Wild Cherry's Rag. Oh, Roland Short is watching from Vallecito. That's Vallecito Lake. It's just not far from Durango. Let me do something different for you now. Let's do a waltz. And this is one from the early 1920s that I have used for silent films. I remember using this when I was working at the Cinecon Film Festival in Hollywood for one of the dramas, a feature-length film that I accompanied there. I had never even seen the movie, but I played for the entire movie. And it came out in 1923. I believe it was the first song ever published by the great pianist and prolific songwriter Glenn Rowell. And Glenn was a big star of radio in the 1920s. He's best known for writing the tune I Get the Blues When It Rains. But this was his first tune, which was an enormous hit at the time, and it's called School Day Sweethearts. And for a long time, I had no idea why, instead of using his real name, Glenn Rowell, on the sheet music, it said Words and Music by Glenn Edwards. And I asked Frederick Hodges what his opinion on this was. And he had an excellent idea, which I think solves the mystery, because the song is based very lightly, very slightly on the famous waltz School Days by Gus Edwards. It was probably a tribute to Gus Edwards. He was the king of these types of waltzes. He wrote In My Merry Oldsmobile and School Days. So it's hard to imagine today just how famous Gus Edwards was in the early 1920s. But I think that's why Glenn used that fake name on the music. This is School Day Sweethearts. And that's School Day Sweethearts. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah, I agree, Dave. I don't play slow waltzes often enough, I imagine, and it does show off the nice tone of this piano. It has German oboe piano hammers on it. Newly rebuilt about 5 years ago now, I imagine. And if you're just joining me, welcome and thanks so much for listening. I do accept virtual tips for my concerts, and all you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, just like you would in person. And if you don't trust PayPal and all that, I have a P.O. box on my website for checks, but the PayPal and Venmo information is in the postings. Looks like my new Ethernet adapter seems to be working. We're about 15 minutes in. I'm excited. This might be an easy solution for my virtual concerts. And if you have requests, please send them on in. Just type it in the chat. Hopefully I'll get to some requests tonight. I prefer requests that have something to do with the theme for the concert. Tonight is music for silent movies. And I think I did a themed concert like this just once last year, but I had big streaming issues that night. Hopefully not tonight. And I did get a request ahead of time for a piece that I was already planning to play. So I might do it now. And this is a instrumental piano rag written in 1914 by Lou Pollock. And the funny thing is that Dixieland jazz bands took over this tune, and they never played it quite the way it was originally written. And I hope the folks that asked for this are listening already tonight. This is a tune called That's a Plenty. So I hope you're listening. And I don't do it the way it's originally written in the sheet music. I think the way the jazz bands do it is just as good, if not better. So that's how I learned it, and I essentially learned it by ear. I don't do that with too many pieces, but this one, I could do it that way. That's a plenty. Something like that. That's a plenty. Well, that's one of the tunes that you can easily use for like a chase scene in a silent film. As I said, rags or songs with the minor key themes are really useful. And let me play another one for you that's a favorite of mine. And I used to play this as a duet with Johnny Maddox, an Irving Berlin song from 1913. It's called In My Harem. That's In My Harem. Thank you so much, folks. If you enjoy this kind of music or have friends that you think might like to listen to my concerts, share this on Facebook, other social media sites, either the Facebook link or the YouTube link. I really would appreciate that. Oh, hello to Penny Schwartz in Baltimore. Sure, can't wait to see you at the beginning of June. It's been way too long. Really looking forward to that a lot. Please send in some requests. Don't appear to be as many viewers here on Facebook, but I'd be happy to play requests tonight. I have a number of things that I planned ahead of time to play for you, of course, but let me try and get in some requests as well. Oh, Dave, you know, that's a terrific idea. I wish that I did know some E.T. Paul music, but I don't know any of it by heart. I bet his marches and so forth were used in a lot of films. You're right on there, I'm sure. I played for a couple of silent films here in Durango in person last week, and I'll play for you one of the tunes that I used, which I believe was written about 1913, and I used it for a Harold Lloyd short comedy. And the funny thing is, the name of the movie is Get Out and Get Under. And the title of this song is he'd have to get under, get out, and get under to fix up his automobile. So you would think that they had to be thinking of this song when they made the movie. And so it's just perfect for it. It's a cute ragtime number. I don't think I said the title quite right. It's he'd have to get out, or is it get under, get out and get under, get out and get under to fix up his automobile. It's something like that, either the reverse or the way I said it. I don't know which. Thanks, Amy. I guess I had it right the first time. He'd have to get under, get out, and get under to fix up his little machine. Is that the full title? I thought it was automobile. Isn't that funny? I can play the whole song, every chord, got it right, and I don't know the title of it. That happened to me once a number of years ago. I was playing a tune. I played the song in a medley with other songs, and I couldn't think of the name of it. I could play the whole song, and I couldn't think of what the name of it was. It turned out it was The Trail of the Lonesome Pine. Well, sometimes the lyrics of a song and the actual title on the cover of the music or the inside on the first page can be somewhat different. A great example of that is Joseph Lamb's Ragtime Nightingale. On the cover of the music, the title of the tune is Nightingale Rag, and the title on the first page is Ragtime Nightingale. So I think automobile might be in the subtitle. That's what the song is about anyway, and that's what the Harold Lloyd movie is about too. Oh, got some requests. Okay, the third band theme. You know, I absolutely love that song, and it's not silent film related. Maybe I'll do it at the end of the concert and pretend we're going into the talkie era. And the funny thing is, I watched the movie The Third Man not long ago too. I bought a copy of it on Blu-ray. It's a really remarkable movie, probably one of my favorites with Orson Welles. And my late friend Irving Fields, his big hit song called Managua, Nicaragua, is played in that movie in a scene in a nightclub. That was a song that was known all over the world internationally in the late 1940s. Well, let me do a song now that was inspired by an early silent film star who was, you might call her one of the early sex symbols of the silent screen. There's many people who claim to have been the first. She was among the first, and her name was Theda Bara. Does anybody know what song I'm going to do next? This was written in 1919 by a songwriter named Byron Gay. He didn't write too many other tunes that are very famous. He's in a film short with Zez Confrey, and I think he wrote a song, another one in the teens that was a minor hit called The Little Ford Rambled Right Along. I think that was Byron Gay's other big hit. This one came out in 1919. And okay, I'm not getting anything here. It's called the Vamp. And that's what Theda Bara was known as. So this is the Vamp. And apparently the chorus of this tune is based on an aria from the opera Madame Butterfly. It's hard to distinguish, I think, playing it the way they would have done in those days, like a foxtrot. It's hard to tell, but here we go with the Vamp. Oh, hello there to Marilyn and Bill. I missed you too, although if I had the chance to go to France, I wouldn't miss that either. These friends of mine spent several weeks in France, I think it was, right? Yeah. Let me do a couple of more waltzes for you. Take it easy here for a second. And these are two pretty waltzes, not syncopated necessarily, but they're popular music of the ragtime era, more like operetta. And Johnny Maddox taught me these. I really don't play too many tunes like this, but he taught me both of these tunes to play as duets with him. And they're both beautiful. The first one is called My Beautiful Lady, and it's from a 1911 operetta. It was on Broadway, called The Pink Lady. And then we'll do a tune called the Sympathy Waltz, which is by Rudolph Valentino, the great American operetta composer, which is from a show called The Firefly. This is My Beautiful Lady, followed immediately by Sympathy Waltz. Thank you so much. That's My Beautiful Lady and Sympathy, two of the popular tunes of early American operetta. And those are the kinds of songs that are wonderful to use in silent films for dramas and love scenes. I have used both of those in movies, and I just keep changing key until the scene changes. They're very useful. Well, looked like my performance cut out just for a second there. I don't know if that was my Wi-Fi here on Facebook or if that was the stream itself. Boy, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this adapter might work pretty well. So far, it's all right. Kylan, boy, I missed you. Yes, I'm sure Sutter Creek does silent films with Frederick Hodges. He's one of the very best pianists, I think, in the country that does silent films. Really, silent films with live music are probably even better with a theater organ. That's how I love to see them. I think I've only seen that once in person in my life, which was at the Missouri Theater in Columbia, Missouri during the Blind Moon Ragtime Festival. They had Dennis James play for a silent film called Show People with Marion Davies, and he's one of the very best theater organists in the country. Goat, what does that mean? Frederick is a goat. What does that mean? I don't know. I do want to do a couple of songs for you tonight that are inspired by certain movies, certain stars of the silent cinema. Oh, greatest of all time, Goat. Yeah, I think you're right. There is no doubt about that. I even stole part of his score for the movie I did last week called Safety Last with Harold Lloyd. This is a pretty rare piece of sheet music, I think. This is the very first edition of a song called Mickey, which was an enormous hit. And that is Mabel Normand, the silent film star, on the cover of the music. This tune came out in 1918. And usually the copy of the music you see is the small size, which came out after World War I. In 1918, they were still printing both sizes of music. And this came from the collection of my late friend Mike Montgomery, who was one of the premier ragtime collectors and historians. He's been gone for 11 years now. But I've never seen another large format copy of this song. Words were written by Harry Williams, who worked with Egbert Van Alstyne, music by Neil Moray, which was the most common pseudonym of the songwriter Charles N. Daniels, great songwriter of the American Songbook. He wrote Ragtime too. And so this is not one of the first theme songs from a silent film, but it's among the first that was an enormous hit. The very first one, the first theme song written for a movie, at least as far as I've been able to ascertain, it was The Perfect Song, which was later used by Amos and Andy, but it was actually written for D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, that controversial 1915 movie, and I have the first edition of The Perfect Song. That's probably the first movie theme song, but this is one of the earliest, and it's called Mickey. We'll do it here complete with the verse. Mickey by Neil Moray, Charles N. Daniels. And there's a short version of the song anyway, Mickey. Well, let's see. Let me do a real famous song for you now. And Oh, thanks for the kind words, folks. We'll do a song that was inspired by a certain movie and a certain movie star, not written specifically for the movie. I think the way to say it correctly would be that this song was inspired by The Chic with Rudolph Valentino. We're going to do The Chic of Araby. This might be another Ted Snyder song. I played the Wild Cherries Rag at the beginning of the concert. I think this is Ted Snyder too. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, because I am sometimes. This is The Chic of Araby. I'm the Chic of Araby. Thank you so much, folks. Let's do the other piece of music that is sitting here on my piano. And this is one of the beautiful and talented actresses of the silent screen. You don't hear much about her these days. Her name was Mary Pickford. And she was involved with starting United Artists, the production company or distribution company, whatever it is. And I think she was also one of the first that was involved with starting the motion picture home in Southern California. I don't know that I've seen too many of her films. I know I did see one on the big screen at the Cinecon Classic Film Festival. And you could see why people in the early 1900s just loved her. She was really very charming. And this song, I think, I have a couple about Mary Pickford, and I remember playing this one in the last concert I did that was devoted to music of silent films. I think this is the best of them musically. It's called Mary Pickford, the darling of them all, and this came out early, 1914, which is the same year that the very first feature-length films were released. I forget what the very first one was, but it was only a year before The Birth of a Nation in 1915. The song is by Dave Radford, Daisy Sullivan, and Richard A. Whiting, who's the wonderful songwriter that brought us songs like Till We Meet Again and Ain't We Got Fun. He was Margaret Whiting's father. And now we're going to do one of his sentimental songs from 1914, Mary Pickford, the Darling of Them All. Pretty little song. I thought it was worth playing. Thank you, folks. Well, let me do another special one for you. The other piece of sheet music, which is sitting right here on the piano. This is quite possibly the oldest piece of sheet music I have in my collection, which I was able to have autographed personally for me by the star on the cover of the music. She was a silent film star in the early 1920s, and her name was Baby Peggy. Her real name was Peggy Montgomery, and she later changed it to Diana Sarah Carey. And this is probably the best of the songs written about Baby Peggy. There are about 4 songs written about her, and this is called That's My Baby. You can see a little sticky note that she wrote to me there, a sticky note from a silent film star. I've kept it right here with the music for, well, this was over 10 years ago when she signed this for me, 11 years ago, almost. And the tune's called That's My Baby. This is not Yes Sir, That's My Baby. This one predates that song by 2 years. I printed the music here, so I'm not going to read from the copy that she signed. Music by Sidney Clare, Cliff Friend, and Owen Murphy. Cliff Friend was extremely prolific, but here we go with That's My Baby from 1923 in honor of the silent film star Baby Peggy. If you've never seen a baby Peggy film, she really was adorable. I'm sure that's why her films were as popular as they were, even though she was only, well, one of 2 or 3 child stars of the time that were quite popular, and she was, well, she made films for Universal, but at that time that was not one of the biggest movie studios. What else would you like to hear, folks? I haven't really got any requests. I would like some more requests. I did get one for the Third Man theme. Doesn't really fit the concert, but I might play it here in a bit. What else would you like to hear? Anything, you know, rags, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that much. Has to be something that I know by heart, of course. Looks like there has been a few tiny hiccups tonight, but not very long. You know, I don't know. Yes, we have No Bananas by heart. Sorry, don't know it by heart. Frog Legs Rag? Yeah, I could play that for you. I think I've got plenty of time for it, too. Let's do it now. We're going to go back to ragtime now, which, of course, was used frequently for silent film accompaniment. We're going to do the Frog Legs Rag, which was the biggest hit for James Scott, who was one of the classic ragtime writers from Carthage, Missouri. And outside of the Maple Leaf Rag, apparently this was the biggest seller for music publisher John Stark. Oh, I guess I will have to assign a moderator. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, I've got some requests here I can do. This is great. Let me break up the program just a little and play something different for you. First here, there are a lot of the early silent films that are westerns. They have Native American scenes and so forth. So let me play you one of the tunes that I love for doing those kinds of scenes in movies. And this tune came out around World War I. I learned it from Johnny. It's called Indianola. And it was very popular around World War I to take one tune and interpolate the chorus of another in the middle of the song. Sometimes it's called an interpolation or just a medley. It was very common on acoustic records of that time, especially the 12-inch ones, because they could play longer. So that's where the idea for this came from. It's Indianola, and a World War I tune by Maceo Pickford called Those Draftin' Blues. So yeah, that Frog Legs Rag, that was for, I think, Rosalind requested that, and I've got some more. I think I'm going to do Spaghetti Rag in a minute, but here's Indianola. Thank you very much. That's Indianola with a couple of choruses of Those Draftin' Blues. If you're just joining me, I do accept virtual tips for these concerts, and all you have to do is follow the PayPal link or use Venmo, and the information is in the postings. I really appreciate those virtual tips. You know, even though I am going back to a couple of the ragtime festivals in person here coming up, it's the first time I've been to several of these events in almost 3 years because of COVID. And not only that, but there's very few ragtime piano festivals left. You know, they don't pay much. So the idea to do these virtual concerts has been very beneficial to my career. And I thank you all for sending in those tips. I really do. Now let's do another old-time rag, which is the kind of thing you could use for a real fast chase scene in a silent film. I think someone requested this a few weeks ago and I never got around to it. So let's do it now. It's a simple tune written by a vaudeville team. I don't know much about them, called Lyons and Yasko. I have their picture on a few pieces of music, and it's called the Spaghetti Rag. Yeah, I have used Entry of the Gladiators for silent films. I sure have. I don't know it by heart. I'd have to see the sheet music. But right now we're going to do the Spaghetti Rag, which is from 1910. But this is one of those sort of simple rags that was revived in the 1950s by honky-tonk pianists like Joanne Castle and so forth, but this is just the way I play it. The Spaghetti Rag. And that's the Spaghetti Rag. Thank you, folks. Well, oh, hold on a second. By the Beautiful Sea. I suppose I could play that for you. Let's see, I might do it with another song of the period from almost the same year, I think about 1912, which is called Row, Row, Row. We'll do two water-themed tunes here, which would be great for nautical scene and a silent film. We'll do Row, Row, Row and By the Beautiful Sea. Row, row, row. and By the Beautiful Sea. Thank you, folks. Oh, I didn't know that. This is for Peter from England. He says that Row, Row, Row and By the Beautiful Sea were done as a medley and the story of Vernon and Irene Castle. Well, I usually do Row, Row, Row with Abba Dabba Honeymoon since they were done in the movie 2 Weeks with Love. But and I want to do something with a little bit different mood to it. And I have been thinking for, some time about maybe trying to compile my own score for the movie The Sheik with Rudolph Valentino, or The Son of the Sheik. I sat here and watched the whole silent film by myself one time about 2 years ago, and I haven't seen The Son of the Sheik yet. I think it'd be a challenge because it's quite a long movie, like an hour and 45 minutes, and it would be hard to find enough music that sounds Middle Eastern or what have you. I think tangos would probably work pretty well for a movie like that too. So I'm going to play a tango for you now. And I just thought I would do one of my favorite American tangos of the 1920s. It was written in about 1923, I believe, and it was written under a pseudonym, but the real composer was named Gus Henshin. And Gus Henshin was a St. Louis band leader who at one time had studied piano with Scott Joplin, believe it or not. This is a gorgeous tango that he wrote. It's probably his most famous tune. I don't know why he used a fake name on it, something like Paul DuPont. The tune is called La Rosita. Here we go. I got a request from Kelly Kaufman for a novelty piano solo. I didn't miss that, Kelly. And I was planning to play something by Roy Bargy anyway, because the novelties are really great for silent films, the comedies, the lighthearted movies, kind of like the ragtime pieces are. And so I wanted to do a novelty for you, and she wants to hear Piano Flage. This is probably one of the very best of the novelties by Roy Bargy, who initially played the piano with Isham Jones Orchestra. Later on he was with Paul Whiteman's orchestra, and then he became Jimmy Durante's musical director, believe it or not. Now there's a character for you, one of the greats of American show business. And of course he made many player piano rolls too. His are some of the very best, most inventive arrangements. Now we're going to do Piano Flage, and I'll pretend I'm playing for a funny silent film with Buster Keaton or Fatty Arbuckle, or even somebody like Ben Turpin, if anybody knows who that was. Piano Flage. That's called Piano Flage. Thank you, folks. And hi there to Barbara in Mexico City. My goodness. I really don't know any Mexican music, but I did just play a pretty tango. Rough and Ready, it's actually spelled with an N. Rough and Ready is another tune by Roy Bargy and Charlie Strait, but I can play it, but I think I'd rather practice it first. Sorry about that. I do practice once in a while, believe it or not. Let me do another novelty piano solo for you, and this one is in a very different style. That's more of a player piano roll style with lots of thick chords and so forth. This one is sort of lighthearted and melodic, pretty tune, which is how many of the novelties were actually, as opposed to the Roy Bargy style. And this one came out about 1926, and it's appropriate to play for this concert because the man that wrote this was known for writing a lot of the real silent film theme music or mood music. His name was John S. Zamashnik. I'm pretty sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this may have been one of his most successful tunes in the popular idiom. That is, I know it sold lots of copies of sheet music. Excuse me. And I learned this because Johnny Maddox loved it, and he learned it from one of his piano teachers. His name was Leela Donahoe, and she had played the tune back in the 1920s when it first came out. She played it in kind of a light, lilting style, and that's what I'll try to do here. And last summer, I stole an introduction to the tune off of a player piano roll. The tune is simply called Polly. So here's Polly from 1926 by J.S. Zamashnik. I'm talking to Leo there, yes. That tune is very reminiscent of Nola. Their novelty piano solos cover a broad spectrum, of course, just like ragtime does, but a lot of them are very lighthearted, sort of like Nola, and it's written in the same key, D major. Very little popular music for piano is written in sharp keys like that, so that's why it sounds kind of unique. I'd like to get a couple more requests in here tonight. If you've got some, folks, please go ahead and send them in. Joe Jordan's certainly one of my favorite composers. I'm checking for request here real quick. Bernie asks for Red Wing. Well, I certainly could play that. Maybe I'll do a little medley of cowboy and Indian songs, which I do use for silent films. I suppose it fits. Red Wing was written by Carey Mills, the same man that wrote Meet Me in St. Louis and some of the great early rags like Whistling Rufus and Georgia Camp Meeting. I might play it with a couple of other tunes. Let's see which ones we're going to do. Probably Pony Boy, My Pony Boy, a very popular song of the period, and what else? Maybe that's all we need, just those two tunes. Oh, hey Glenn, I'm so glad you got to hear Polly. I love it too. Of Red Wing for you, Bernie. Thanks, folks. Let's see. Oh, well, I promised a fellow early on in the concert that I would play a tune that is not for silent films at all, but since I said I'd do it, I better do it. This is from years later, actually. It was written in the 1940s for the movie The Third Man, which starred Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles, and it's a great suspenseful movie, and the music is part of what just really made this movie special. And it was all written and played by a man named Anton Karas, an Austrian musician who played the zither, which is an unusual instrument, but it had just the right effect for the film. So let's do the Third Man theme, which has a little bit of extra ragtime here in my arrangement, but regardless, here's the Third Man theme. Do you dare me? That's the third man theme. Thank you, folks. Yes, and as my dad just mentioned, I did play that at Johnny's funeral, believe it or not. Johnny Maddox, the famous pianist, I was very surprised he wanted that played at his funeral. It was one of his favorite tunes. But if you think about it, that tune came out when he was a young man, and so I'm sure he loved it, had good memories of that time, and he played it all the time as well. Well, I'm not quite done for the night. I saw Barbara wanted to... This is Barbara from Mexico City. She mentioned Laurel and Hardy. Let me throw in one more set of tunes here that I hadn't thought about doing yet tonight, but actually I mentioned this song earlier, The Trail of the Lonesome Pine. And I'm going to do this because Laurel and Hardy sang the tunes in one of their movies. Actually, it was their best movie, Way Out West. And they sang The Trail of the Lonesome Pine and another tune which was written in 1913, almost the same year, called At the Ball, That's All. So I've made a medley out of these two. So we'll do just a little tribute to Laurel and Hardy here. Since they were two of the great silent film stars, they were both major stars of the silent film era and talkies. So here we go with these two tunes in honor of Laurel and Hardy. Two of my very favorites. Two best comedians, I think. Trail of the Lonesome Pine. Well, I have at least two more tunes that I wanted to play for you tonight, and one of them is quite unique. I don't know that it's necessarily a great piece for silent film, but I have used it for movies. And, oh, hey, Nick. Sure looking forward to seeing you in August. He says he remembers those songs from Way Out West. Yeah. Well, the reason I am going to play this next tune is because a lot of silent films in the early 1900s, 1920s, the way everyone got around in those days was on steam trains. And so we're going to do a railroad tune for you, which is why that funny little bell is sitting down here by the piano. I used this at the Diamond Bell. I thought it's about time I brought out my props here for one of my virtual concerts. And If you happen to be coming to the Old Time Piano Championship down in Oxford, Mississippi, Memorial Day weekend, I will be there. And one of the tunes I'm doing is an incredible 1927 film called Chasing Choo-Choos, which was filmed on the San Diego and Arizona Railroad. And in fact, I use this tune, Railroad Blues, for the movie when it comes to the climax at the very end of the movie. And so this was written by the great ragtime pianist Lucky Roberts. He had a style that was unlike any other. But here we go with Railroad Blues. That's Railroad Blues. Thank you so much, folks. Well, if you have enjoyed the concert, and you're able to, go ahead and leave a virtual tip. There's no obligation. I appreciate that very much. And I've got one more tune I'm going to play for you. I've been saving this for the grand finale tonight. And in fact, this is a tune that I used last weekend for the movie Safety Last with Harold Lloyd. When he gets to the top of the clock tower and is hanging by one hand, this is the tune that is used for absolutely the highlight of the movie. And so this is actually a ragtime or vaudeville song. It has words to it, but if you don't sing it, nobody really knows what it is, and it makes great mood music for silent films. From 1910, we're going to do King Chanticleer, everybody. Here we go.
Chanticleer.
Yay! Thank you so much, folks. That's going to be it for tonight. I really appreciate the tips, especially since I had to miss a week last week. But I plan to be back one more time next week before I go off to play a few music festivals. Next Sunday night, I am thinking about doing a virtual concert devoted once again to music from my sheet music collection. We'll call it Treasures from the Sheet Music Collection. This is something that I haven't done again in about a year, and I think it was one of those nights that I had real bad streaming issues. So here's hoping that I can do a perfect concert for you next week. Not that there is such a thing, but thank you all so much for listening tonight, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place on Facebook and YouTube. Good night for now.